What is up, UFC fans? I am Jason Burgos for Sportsnaut.com, and I'm here to give you the 10 greatest UFC fighters of all time. Let's get into the list. First up, number 10, Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell was the closest thing MMA has had to Mike Tyson. He was a must-see fighter in his prime because of his sledgehammer punching power and the aura that surrounded him at his peak. The Iceman was one of the first mainstream fighters in the company, and he had those building block shoulders the company stood on to become the billion-dollar monster it is today. Number 9, Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman was an absolutely dominant force in a very strong era for the welterweight fighters and the division. That man didn't even lose in the company until his 15th fight, and he beat the who's who of the 170s, including Jorge Masvidal, twice. Yet, what made him so special is he began his run as a stifling wrestler and turned into a high-level striker, making him one of the most complete fighters of his era. Number 8, Daniel Cormier. No man was a better representative for the UFC than Daniel Cormier. He was like Randy Couture for the next generation. However, this particular Olympic wrestler could do it all and had an elite level fighter IQ as well. He was a rare 2-division champion, and it took a couple of GOATs to actually hand this man L's during his time in the company. Number 7, Amanda Nunes. Simply put, Amanda Nunes is the greatest female fighter of all time in all sports. She beat damn near every elite fighter near her weight class during her run, and oftentimes pretty easily. That is what makes her so special. She is not just the best female fighter ever, but one of the best all time for either gender. Number 6, Stipe Miocic. Stipe Miocic wasn't the hardest hitting heavyweight. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the best wrestler, wasn't the best jiu-jitsu guy, or even the best striker. And yet he still went on to become the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. He is one of the best underdog story in the sport's history. And being a firefighter and a UFC great at the same time just makes him a legendary human. Number 5, Demetrious Johnson. Demetrious Johnson is the greatest flyweight in MMA history, and it isn't even close. There was little Johnson couldn't do in the cage, and if he had big power, the man would have just been illegal. There is only one fighter that was more complete than Mighty Mouse, and he's at the top of this list. Number 4, Anderson Silva. While Chuck Liddell was like Mike Tyson, Anderson was sort of like Tyson meets Bruce Lee. His aura beat opponents before they even got in the cage, and his reflexes seemed like something out of the Matrix. He was one of the most dominant and scary champions of his time, and to this day is still arguably the best striker the sport has ever seen. Number 3, Khabib Nurmagomedov. While there may be some fighters on this list that were better technically, they don't have a 0 in the loss column like Khabib does. The Eagle only had one way he was going to win. All his opponents knew it, and they still couldn't stop him. He was the most dominant fighter ever in what was always considered the most talent-rich division in the UFC. Enough said. Number 2, Georges St-Pierre. Georges St-Pierre was like the Mickey Mantle of the UFC. Matinee idol, good looks, and all-time talent. He was a perfect mix of power, speed, explosiveness, technique, and fight IQ. He entered the company as a talented striker and turned into one of its greatest wrestlers. To this day, Rush is still the greatest welterweight of all time, and his hit list is full of Hall of Fame level fighters. And at number 1 on our all-time list, John Bones Jones. Love him or hate him, there is no denying John Jones is the greatest UFC fighter of all time. No matter where a fight went, it always seemed like Bones could end it whenever he wanted, and his ability to score knockouts and submissions over former champions and some of the greatest fighters of all time is what separates him from other legends. Becoming a 2-division champion in 2023 was just the cherry on top of what was already a once-in-a-lifetime career.